Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. Good afternoon, everybody. Man, it feels good to be back. I'm telling you, there's energy in the air. And I'm not just talking in San Antonio. I'm talking everywhere, whether you're the women's Final Four yesterday, as you've seen UConn become upset. I'm sure they're still very upset by that win, that loss rather, over Notre Dame, who just took them out 91-89. That was not a final I'm sure the UConn women's basketball program was really looking for. But thank you for joining me. Good afternoon, everybody. Got a lot to go to. I want to preface this show by saying thank you for all your support. Everybody out there, everybody willing to press a like or to share or to comment. I really appreciate the input. It was a very long and interesting journey all the way to Oakland, as I had interviewed with the Oakland Raiders. And when I say Raiders, I mean Raiders, only for the simple fact that it's a brand ambassador position. And that entails talking to players, getting them involved in the situation, getting involved in the atmosphere, getting the Raiderettes involved as well, along with other work at training camp in Napa and lots of other anomalies. I don't have all the details, only for the simple fact that it was just an interview. The odds are with me, however, in the sense that I do have there were 30 people, and with those 30 people, there were only 15 that they were choosing. I really don't know, kind of left in the dark at this point, but I'll know by Monday. So when I know, you know. So thank you for tuning in. Let's kind of go into this real quick, because Major League Baseball opening day was just 2 days ago. You've seen a lot of wild finishes, include the Pirates, who faced off against and in Detroit against the Tigers, trying to come back in this game. This went to 13 innings and an overturn at home plate. Of course, I was trying to get Jason Novelka on to talk about this game and how he was kind of miffed at the fact that it was a knee-jerk reaction by fans stating that, oh, this is just another Pirates game, just another Pirates season. They fought their way through it despite some give-ups at the plate, or at the mound, rather, to the plate. But they won 13-10. That's what matters. Opening day win. Pirates accustomed to kind of winning in opening day, really not so much winning in opening day. Anyway, this is going to be a very interesting day. I have a lot to get to, a lot of information, a lot of scores around Major League Baseball. Washington Nationals had taken care of Cincinnati Reds yesterday. Yankees just pummeled Toronto Blue Jays, as you've seen Giancarlo Stanton, who took not only one home run, but had taken two out of the park. Good for him. Good for the Yankees as they beat the Blue Jays 4-2. Boston decided to show up in such a way that you didn't think that David Price would. The guy had pitched over 70 and 2/3 innings last season, found himself in a situation where he had 5 strikeouts, pitched 7 innings, and just did absolutely what he needed to do. Unfortunately, last year he was kept in the bullpen. So something to look forward to this season, David Price being that go-to guy, at least in the onset, for the Boston Red Sox, and obviously the top of the rotation for pitching. Miami Marlins beat the Chicago Cubs. Of course, this had taken 17 innings. I didn't want to be at that game at all. A little too long for my taste, but needless to say, a lot of good baseball there to be played. Philadelphia Phillies, it took 11 innings to make that score determination. How interesting that all these teams and all these scores and all the variety of teams that are playing and the amount of innings that it had taken to actually get them to win the game. That's very long. I wouldn't want to be at any of those, and I definitely don't want to be in the stands, to say the least. But, hey, I think of Cracker Jacks. I think of baseball times. I think of catching foul balls, maybe if one was ever hit my direction in foul territory. And in addition to that, I just like the hot dogs there, right? So everybody can get a hot dog and get some relish, and you're going to either relish the moment or not. Dump. So let's get on to it here. Philadelphia Phillies beat out the Braves in 11 innings. Rangers, again, the 3-game skid for basically everybody. Rangers 5-1 over the Astros. Diamondbacks 9-8 over the Rockies. LA and the Angels ended up winning yesterday 2-1 over the Athletics. Milwaukee Brewers, of course, San Diego Padres are always licking their wounds, and this may not be any different of a season, but we'll see. Lots of baseball to be played, so don't get fooled by any of this. What's going on? Thank you. I don't know about Go Giants. I'd like to think that the Giants certainly are in contention They did blank the Dodgers 1-0. So we'll see how that goes in the 3-game set, if he can take advantage of the Dodgers in such a way that would beat them down to a bloody pulp. San Francisco Giants, again, yesterday scored 1-0. And what's interesting is that the Dodgers haven't scored anything in the last 6 to 7 innings since last year's World Series. So makes you wonder. I'm sorry, in the NL championship game, they just didn't get it done. But again, David Price doing what he needs to do, getting it done. 7 innings pitched, he only allowed 4 hits, no runs, and 5 strikeouts. That is fantastic. David Price getting it done for Boston. Definitely somebody to look forward to as the season progresses. But more importantly, when you look at what's going on in Major League Baseball, lots of good stuff. I mean, a lot of teams are finding themselves early on, having the momentum, being able to carry that forward, being able to really do what they need to do. And early on, there is a showing. There are teams who are starting to show up. They're getting a feel for it. This is a long season. They're trying to find out where they belong, where they fit in their respective conferences. But more importantly, it's baseball. Who doesn't want to watch baseball? Who doesn't want to see baseball? Who doesn't want to go to a baseball game? Tell me somebody who doesn't. And I got some swampland in Arizona to sell you. And I don't mean next to the Diamondback Stadium. Well, I mean, I could be. It depends on where you're at, where you're from. But it's Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on TheRudeDogShow.com. And I'm live here on Facebook trying to get Periscope up and running. Of course, a little faulty, but we'll see how that works out here. Today's games include the Pirates. And again, 3-game skid against the Tigers at Comerica Park. That is expected to start real soon. The Cardinals also doing something that they've been trying to do. They're 0-1. They find themselves down in New York right now against the New York Mets. Nationals take on the Reds. Astros take on the Rangers today. Again, these are all 3-game skids. Angels trying to either win or tie up the series at 1-1. Yankees 2-0 against the Blue Jays, who are now find themselves 0-2. And will the Blue Jays ever get off the bad skid? They start 0-2. This is not exactly where I thought that they would be, but they're now 0-2. And again, it's a long season, so I wouldn't put any stock early on what's going on in baseball. Other than that, it's back, and there are teams who are really poised to get themselves up and running and really find out where they belong defensively, offensively, who their strong people are, what their defensive system is going to be like on the infield, what they feel like on the outfield as well. Pirates no longer have McCutchen. Giants decided to pick up Andrew McCutchen, which takes a franchise player away from Pittsburgh. But that is a whole nother story. I won't even go there. But, of course, the game starts it's a 12-10 start, Pacific, 3:10 Eastern. Boston takes on Tampa Bay. The Twins trying to get off an 0-1 to make it 1-1 to tie up the series. Orioles are 1-0. Phillies today going on at 1:10 Pacific. They're 1-1. Braves are 1-1. That ought to be a very interesting game. Atlanta finds themselves at home, which you couldn't ask for any better as far as the home field advantage is concerned. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. There are things that come and go. And when I say come and go, I mean that in the best possible sense. And I look at it's one of those 4 major food groups. This is one of the 4 major sports groups. Would you agree? Hit the like, share. This is this is the bare bones situation that allows us to understand that baseball's back. It's a welcome sport. Everybody loves the sport. Baseball's gone a very long way. Continues to get better. Continues to bring more fans in. People become a lot more engaged, and you really see and understand that not only do people enjoy baseball, but they want to take part of it. They just want to sit there in the stands and waiting. They want to catch those foul balls. They want to talk to players. They want better player engagement. I think that's what they're getting. I think people are becoming more involved in the baseball system in the sense that they want to go to these games. They want to go interact with these players, get an autograph, say hello, shake a hand, things of that nature. Major League Baseball is making it easier more now than ever. More now than ever before. So we're going to find out exactly what this season is made of. It's a long way to go, a lot of games to go into, a lot of games to talk about as the season goes on. But hopefully everybody will at least attend one baseball game this year. I plan on attending at least one baseball game this year, and maybe from the media room. I guess we're going to have to find that out. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into something different. When I say different, I mean really different. I mean like night and day different. I had a pleasure to cover the Elite Eight, as you've seen Michigan take on Florida State University at Staples Center. What a game that was. Florida State struggled on the interior, didn't get the ball where they needed to. I had a chance to interview a lot of these players getting into the second round to face off against Michigan on Saturday. And I look at Michigan as being a very dominant force, dominant offensively. They get it to Wagner, they get it to Matthews, they get it to all their role players. Everybody just making it a really fantastic game, fantastic transitionally, with Michigan being able to get to the ball where they need to go, and how they need to do. They just have a game plan. They've been executed all season long. And Michigan will take on Loyola University. Of course, everybody's talking about Sister Jean, and as long as she's not related to Billie Jean, I guess we're okay there. I look at Michigan against Loyola. Of course, that game will start off at 12:09, so not too far away from now. I like Michigan's chances here. Of course, the underdog being Loyola, Illinois, in Chicago. But more importantly, I think Loyola needs to set the tone early. They need to get the ball in and out. They need to be fantastic in transition. Look, this is a Final Four. This isn't your regular average run-of-the-mill weekend game. We're talking a game of all games in a Final Four matchup, as, again, Loyola, Illinois University will take on Michigan to be in an elite group to face off in a championship game against whether or not it's Villanova, whether or not it's Kansas. You can't get any better than this. I think more importantly, everybody has to look at the Kansas game against Duke, because Duke, as good as they are, as good as Grayson Allen is, and what he showed up to be in postseason. When I say postseason, obviously that would be March Madness. But more importantly, in postseason, the way that he played, the types of fouls that he incurred, the types of fouls he tried to really draw contact in, I think was a little bit uncharacteristic. This is not the best Mike Krzyzewski team in my recent memory, nor I don't believe that he thought it was either. I can't speak for Coach K, but more importantly, Duke was not able to get it done, make the shots, at least down the stretch. Kansas just spreading the ball around, making those shots count where they needed to and when they needed to. And, of course, that's where the final 85-81 just last weekend. So it makes you wonder what Kansas will do. They have the speed. They have the exterior guys to shoot from the perimeter. They know how to get it inside of the paint. They've been dominant all season long. And I think that when you look at Villanova taking on against Kansas, that's probably going to be a phenomenal game, a fantastic game, because you're going to pit up number one against number one. Villanova getting it done. Again, a team that shows resilience, that has been resilient all season long, and just makes you wonder how close this game will really be. Who will have the momentum? Who will make the first mistake? Who will make the second mistake? But will those mistakes be capitalized on the other team by getting inside of the paint or shooting from the perimeter? This is going to be a great game to watch, and I cannot wait to get this game underway, to be able to listen to it and watch it and really get into what the hype is all about in the Final Four. But again, Loyola, Illinois against Michigan, Kansas against Villanova, and man, this is going to be exciting. I'm excited to watch it. I am very excited to watch it. I plan on watching it, but you know how that goes. You can't always plan to do the things that you want to do. But in either case, it's been fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Of course, my Periscope is now working, so I'm just going to press play, and hopefully it will. Hopefully I can get it to work. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. I am live here. Oh, what do you know? It's actually working. Periscope is live. I'm live on Periscope. I'm live on Facebook. This is a podcast edition. I don't have Tucker, but I will have Tucker later on. So stay tuned for Tucker Dale Booth, because this is kind of where it's going to be at. Had to get something in there, I'm telling you. So let's get on NCAA Women's Final Four. Notre Dame played a near perfect game because of what they faced against the Huskies. And it wasn't as if there weren't any open shots. It wasn't as if UConn wasn't able to get inside of the paint. They just weren't able to capitalize with ball movement, not being able to get it inside, and not getting it to the big woman to get it done. And of course, Gabby Williams ended up with a double-double for UConn, ended up scoring 89, but lost an upset game against Notre Dame, and also number one seed. And it's really interesting is that in an overtime win, it makes you wonder exactly who is going to make those open shots, who's going to capitalize on transitional offense, and will UConn be able to make that correction as they head into, obviously it's going to happen next year. I believe UConn will also be a part of that Final Four, the women's Final Four next year as well. But what's really interesting is that Katie Lou Samuelson had to work to get the open shots. Well, at least you would think so when you were looking at her all over the floor. And the dagger was a defense by the Notre Dame Fighting Irish women. I don't know if they're Irish women, but they're definitely Irish in the sense that they're able to pull off an upset win over UConn. Live on Periscope, live on TheRudeDogShow.com, Rude Dog Show on Facebook. I am here for about another, 35 minutes or so. And when I look at UConn women's program, always been solid, always been good. But more importantly, when I look at UConn, I think to myself, how bummer of a press conference that was. You have to have the conversation. You have to answer those ugly questions. Who's this and who did that? And, it's a matter of we lost. We got to suck it up and deal with it. It's always about next year, and I think that's where it's at right now for the UConn women's basketball program. But congratulations, Notre Dame. They definitely pulled it off. Congratulations. Kudos to you. Hopefully everybody watched that game yesterday. I didn't have the chance to watch that game yesterday, but I'm sure it was absolutely fantastic. We're going to stay with basketball because I think everybody needs to know what's going on in the Eastern Conference in the NBA, the Western Conference in the NBA, who's in, who's out, who doesn't have a chance to save their life and find themselves in a conversation moving forward. I don't have any concerns for Houston, and let me be much more clear than that. When I say concerns, I mean they have the depth this year that they didn't have last year. They have the role players that are stepping up off the bench, making it count when they need to, and I think James Harden leads the group. He also leads the MVP voting. I think James Harden should be voted MVP. He's done it consistently, but the next runner-up, or at least a head-to-head conversation in that, would be LeBron James. I have no issue with LeBron James. I have no issue with him off the court. I have no issue with him on the court. He's very resilient. He just passed Michael Jordan yesterday for consecutive starts. And so kudos to you, LeBron, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you're checking me out. I'm live on Periscope, Facebook Live as well, and this will be a podcast on TheRudeDogShow.com. But more importantly, LeBron James gets all my support, all of it. Anybody who can play the level that he has with consecutive starts, consecutive games, has my vote. And why wouldn't he? LeBron James, certainly the guy who has done a lot off the court. Most people don't even know about that. Most people don't even think about that, or they just don't care. Well, they're not willing to look at LeBron James for who he is, what kind of person he is, and what he's been able to do to not only help the Cleveland community, but a variety of communities. But I like this matchup. Could it be Houston Rockets and the Cleveland Cavaliers headed into the NBA Finals? Well, maybe. That's a big maybe. There's a lot of basketball that you play. A lot of teams find themselves in an uphill swing, especially the Trailblazers. I'm not saying that the Warriors don't have a chance. I'm going to get back to them in a minute, but I want to talk about the Trailblazers and what they did last night. And I don't mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Los Angeles Clippers are a perennial playoff team, because they're not. They lost last night because of poor transition defense, allowing people to get inside of the lane, and in all fairness, not a great defense whatsoever. But I will say this, when I look at the Trailblazers, I look at McCollum, I look at Damian Lillard, I think to myself, these two guys are one of the best 1-2 punches in the Western Conference outside of Steph Curry when he's healthy, maybe even Iguodala when he's healthy. And, you have those variety of players. But more importantly, Trailblazers are winning. They're very consistently winning. Yes, they're, games back or what have you, but they're winners of one in a row. And against the Clippers, knowing that the Clippers can come back and they have the ability to do so certainly makes you wonder exactly how good this Clippers team is. I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're very good. They have an uphill battle, to say the very least. But more importantly, the Spurs are kind of one of those inconsistent Western Conference teams. They have been for quite some time. At 44-32, playing just over 500 ball, makes you wonder exactly if the Spurs can even be trusted without Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard, defensive MVP, candidate last year, didn't quite make it. And there were speculations about him being traded or being moved on from. I like Kawhi Leonard. I like what he brings defensively. He has the attitude. He has the mentality. He has been doing it at least as consistent as he can when he's actually on the floor. But it hasn't been very often this year at all. I know Coach Popovich is really wondering where he's at, how he's going to be able to step up when he does play. And I think he'll get his feet underneath him as the finals approach. But more importantly, I look at the Golden State Warriors and say to myself, what's wrong with Kevin Durant? I'm going to talk about him for a minute because Kevin Durant, probably one of, and when he was in OKC, I didn't see the mentality. I didn't see this attitude of, well, maybe we're this or maybe we're like that, and not really able to be resilient from a physicality standpoint by being able to hold himself in a check, by not being a disruption on the court. But I think that when you look at Kevin Durant, when you look at what he brings offensively, he's an absolute juggernaut, NBA champion. But something about winning a championship still didn't fill a void with him. I don't know if it's a mental thing, if it's a personal thing, maybe a combination of those. But I look at what he brings on the court when he does bring it without all of the technical fouls, without being thrown or rejected out of games, things of that nature. He's probably one of the best in the league. The problem with Kevin Durant, he has very thin skin, and something triggered. I don't know if it was the action, maybe it's the Western Conference. This part of the Western Conference, or the teams that he plays more consistently. Maybe there's friction on the team. No, but I don't like how he's playing right now in the sense that he's allowing things to bother him. He's not going to climb inside of the paint and not get his hand hit and not get into a physical altercation. You have to prevent that. You're a professional. On the court, off the court, even if fouls do occur, even if they're inadvertent, you can't be the one yourself in a situation where you're going to be ejected because of something you said. Keep a tight lip. Understand where you're at, understanding what you're doing, what you're playing for, and what you're helping your other teammates play for by being on the court. Thank you, Stefan, for tuning in. I appreciate that. Or Steffi, excuse me. Live on Twitter, Periscope, live on Facebook. Go to TheRudeDogShow.com for this podcast. Make sure you stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great time. We're going to talk some NFL free agency. We're going to really kind of bump into things and kind of bump things up, probably all rolled up into one. If you can handle that or not, I don't know. But I like the Minnesota Timberwolves. I like the Thunder, even though they're very inconsistent. They lost last night. And I don't like what they're not playing with. Yes, good afternoon. Hello. Anyway, so love from Twitter. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's a great show, great times, to say the least. Let's kind of get through this here real quick. The Utah Jazz, they're playing good ball. I don't know if they're going to make it. I don't know if they're going to find themselves in the finals. They will be in the playoffs. Top 10 will be in the playoffs. And then the Nuggets, they won last night. So very interesting scenario there. Will they be able to bump it up to become that team that clearly everybody wants them to be? That remains to be the question. Of course, the Lakers on the outside looking in a very, very big way. 33-42. Will they be able to get to 500? I don't know. I don't know. I hope so. I'd like to think that they can, but they are the Lakers. They are building. They're trying to rebuild. They're trying to do things that other teams are not trying to do, and that's at least get to 500 ball. And I think Magic Johnson would be happy with that. I know Luke Walton would be happy with that. Of course, they would rather be in the playoffs. I just don't think they have the depth. Lakers do not have the depth to get in despite having Kuzma, but do not have Lonzo Ball due to physical injury, and he will be out for a little bit of time. Let's move on to the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is very, very critical right now because Raptors are by far playing some of the best basketball, I think, in the last 15, 20 years, because they could very well head into the Eastern Conference being seeded number one. And I think you can really look at what they've been doing offensively, defensively, not turning the ball over, getting defensive rebounds, and being who they should be, who I want them to be. I want to see them enter the playoffs at number one and then take out the Boston Celtics. They don't have Kyrie Irving. They don't have Brown. There's a lot of missing pieces on that Celtics team. And again, a situation that happened last year. Up in number two, being the soft number two, entering the Eastern Conference, find themselves being bounced out faster than a ball, and I mean a basketball. Cavaliers in a third position, 46-30. I think the only reason why the Cavaliers are where they're at right now is because of LeBron James' consistency. I really do. And when you think about LeBron James, you think to yourself, man, he's probably one of the best of all time, past Michael Jordan and all these things. That's great. That's actually gravy. He gave a salute to everybody at the arena, and rightfully so. He should keep the ball, keep it to himself, and say, you know what, this was my passing Michael Jordan ball. I don't know if he'll actually write that down, but if he does, then so be it. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on Periscope, Facebook Live. I don't see anybody on Facebook Live, so maybe they'll tune back into some of the point. So 76ers do not have Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid going out with an orbital fracture, and that's around his eye. And you think to yourself, will he miss more time? Will he miss less time? Nobody really knows. Of course, the brass for the 76ers, and of course, they're winners of many, many games in a row. So a lot of questions surrounding why the 76ers should be in the fourth position is because of Embiid. Of course, we'll have back Markelle Fultz, who's been an absolute force since he arrived back from injury. I think we'd look at the 76ers. They're gonna play. They're the number 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. I like Joel Embiid. Whether or not he plays, whether or not he even gets a chance to play if they get bumped out, I just don't think they have a chance without Joel Embiid in there. I just don't. He's such a force inside. He's such a huge guy. He's smart. He's athletic. I just don't know the 76ers will have enough without him in order to really get it done. Pacers, they're playing good ball. I don't know that they're, again, I think once you move past the level 5, you're going to find teams that are not as consistent. I don't think the Wizards are consistent enough, even though John Wall was shown practicing. Pacers, a one-and-done situation. Miami Heat, they're playing okay. Been playing better since they reacquired Dwayne Wade. Again, I think Dwayne Wade brings something very similar in that he has the passion, the drive, the will. After getting traded from Cleveland, I just don't think the chemistry worked with Dwayne Wade there in Cleveland. I really don't. I think that's one of the reasons why they sent him back to Miami. But in all fairness, Miami fans are probably more than happy to have him back. More than happy to have him back. The Bucks have the identical record, but they're also, I think they're a one-and-done team as well. And I look at the Milwaukee Bucks, and about 41-35, they're playing just above 500 ball. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not that they're playing horribly. I just don't think they have enough depth. I don't think they're using the rotation well enough, and I see them as being a one and done. And, of course, the Detroit Pistons. Did I say Detroit Pistons? Yeah, I know. You didn't like that. Detroit Pistons are the smiley faces on Facebook Live. What do you know? How great is that? But Detroit Pistons are also very weak in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they're going to get there. And, of course, the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know. They changed their names. I'm trying to remember who exactly. But the Hornets, also a very weak team. But from yesterday's scores, this is kind of how it went down. Keeping teams in their respective position, but also gaining ground on others. Chicago Bulls winners against the Magic. 70 beat out Atlanta Hawks. Cavaliers beat the Pelicans 107-102. Rockets one-score squeaker over the Phoenix Suns. Denver Nuggets 126 over this, again, OKC, not very consistent. Done in overtime. Nuggets keep their playoff hopes alive with the win over OKC. Timberwolves 93 beat over the Dallas Mavericks. And again, I don't know who is beating or who's not beating the Dallas Mavericks right about now. And I guarantee you there should be some sellers out there for selling some of these players that they've had. Of course, you may find an older guy who can put himself back in the mix for the Dallas Mavericks. We're going to have to stay tuned for that one for sure. Utah Jazz 107, Memphis Grizzlies 97, Portland Trail Blazers 105 over the Clippers, who just could not get it done, could not find a way to make it back. Milwaukee Bucks 124, LA Lakers 122. So Bucks keep themselves alive. Will sort of win over the Los Angeles Lakers. And I have to see this. As a Lakers fan, I'm not a fan of what they're doing. I just they're inconsistent defensively, and I look at the Lakers. I think to myself, there's a lot of growth, a lot of growth. And I think there's a little bit of way to go there. I think there's a little bit of room. There's obviously lots of margin of error, especially for the Los Angeles Lakers. But more importantly, I look at the Lakers and I think to myself, are they on an uphill slide? Can they get themselves in a situation next year to get the players that will really be of a benefit? And I don't mean just a benefit on the floor, benefit off the floor, but being able to contribute if their name is called off the bench. Why not have a deep bench? I think the Lakers are moving in that direction. And I think to myself, man, you can't get any better of a situation than when you have guys who you want back and some guys you just can't afford to get back. Will Isaiah Thomas be that guy to come back in a Lakers uniform? Whether or not they can work out an arrangement and get Isaiah Thomas to stay for a little while longer, I don't know. We're definitely going to see there. But here to kind of help me shift gears. We're not talking NASCAR, but we're going to try to talk some of that as well. Not today, though. I'm sorry. Not in advance. No, not going to happen today. Anyway, welcome, the one, the only, Desiree Astorga. Desiree, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Rudy. I'm good. I hope I have a little bit of a cold, so hopefully it's not too big of an issue. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. I don't think it's going to be an issue as long as you don't sneeze every time I ask a question. So okay. I think we could probably be fair to say, right? So if you're sneezing, I'm asking questions, probably not going to work out too well. But I hope you feel better, and we'll definitely go on there. Look, we're talking about free agency here on the Rude Dog Show. I'm live on Periscope, live on Facebook, and, of course, this will turn into a podcast on TheRudeDogShow.com. We're talking about free agency, and we're not quite talking draft yet, but when you look at guys like Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, who come into being the perennial 1 and or 2 draftees picked by whether in Cleveland or another team this draft season, do either one of these players remind you of when Wentz and Goff went 1 and 2 in a draft that occurred 2 years ago?
Honestly, no, I don't. I think they're young players. I think they're going to be great players. I really had hoped that Sam Darnold would have stayed one more year at USC. But I think they will make impacts. I just don't see it like the 1-2 that happened a few years ago.
Well, Wentz and Goff, both of these guys, just perennial throwers. They're much more fluid. They make better decisions down the field. They understood the checkdowns. They understand all the progressionary throws. I don't see that from Josh Rosen. I don't see that from Sam Darnold. You're talking about Sam Darnold. Had a chance to meet him in Pac-12 Media Day prior to the season ever kicking off. Good kid. I like him, but do I like him in an NFL uniform? That is another story. I was talking to Jim Everett, former Rams quarterback. Me and him were going back and forth on Twitter, and I told him, I said, I don't know that Sam Darnold is that guy. He said, look, he just needs some polishing. He just needs some work. He needs to, get a solid trainer. And
no, he needed. I think he needed one more year. He has a very special quality that you cannot learn. He was born with it. He is a leader. He has this passion. However, I feel he was a little miscoached last year, and I think he needed one more year to really refine his skills. I think he will be phenomenal. But I think that he needs to. There's things that need to be addressed, and the pressure being one. And he's young. He's really young. Josh Rosen can throw the ball well, but Josh Rosen, really, I mean, I'm a Trojan, but I just not the same. He looked great against USC. However, just not his surrounding pieces weren't that great, and I don't know if he's that great. So, I mean, I wish the best for both of them. I was really blown away by the free agency initially with the quarterback swapping, and the Seattle Seahawks dropping off so many players, and then San Francisco really loading the box.
Yeah, you know what? You wanted to go there, didn't you? Well, Kirk Cousins, I think when you look at
how could I not? I mean, no, it's crazy.
Of course.
I mean, Cousins for Case Keenum, like how do you do that to Case Keenum, who took you to the playoffs, and Bradford gone, and I mean, there was so many things that happened, I want to say, in the first 24 to 48 hours, but yeah, Bradford for Cousins, I mean, and Case Keenum gone. I don't know. Those departures surprised me. And the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, there were so many players they released, but I'm really excited for San Francisco.
I am very excited for San Francisco for a variety of reasons. And one of those starts with the name Jimmy G, because here they are acquiring a guy who was the stepchild of Tom Brady, essentially playing whenever and sometimes never, who gets an opportunity to go to San Francisco, be the starter. It was eventual. Everybody knew that's where he was going to be the starter. He ended up being the starter. I didn't see him playing as early as I believe that he should have. I think there could have been some stages and steps allowing him to be comfortable. But I'll tell you, when you win your last 5 to 7 games as a starter, that says a lot about who you are. Making things work, whereas they didn't have the weapons to really make them work on a consistent basis, that being the 49er lack of wide receiver.
Yes, but I think you have to give Shanahan some credit.
Well, yeah, of course.
I mean, and also I think they did wait. They waited, I want to say 3 weeks to pop him in there. And I don't know if it was misleading, but I had read Coach, oh my gosh, I can't even think of Bill Walsh's story. The score takes care of itself, right before this last season started. And so I had this in the back of my mind that they were sort of in a sort of rebuild mode and that things might happen. And I don't know if it was because I had read Bill Walsh's book and was sort of making comparisons to then and now, but I did see some things happen, I mean, and getting Richard Sherman there, getting the Giants center, Weston Richburg, Jerick McKinnon from the Vikings, and Jonathan Cooper from Dallas. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like they made some great, and then Chargers defensive end, Jerry Atauchu, pardon me.
Right.
But they made a lot of changes, and I just feel like that team is, I mean, I think the NFC West is really going to be good this year, with the exception of the Seahawks, and we'll see where the Cardinals go.
Well, you're talking about the Seahawks, who just dropped off the planet in regards to losing almost all of their Super Bowl players. Richard Sherman now inheriting
Jimmy Graham. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, Sheldon Richardson, Paul Richardson. I mean, it was
one of the
Wilson,
Bennett brothers.
I mean, I mean, it was and I know that Pete has a very clear vision, and so you can't take him out of the. You don't know what they're thinking, but it just seemed like a huge transformation
right now, and it's still unfolding. So to continue the addition by subtraction, you had talked about Case Keenum, and so the Broncos and John Elway, and of course they're always talking about quarterbacks. They drafted,
and then Tua to Denver as well. I mean,
right?
Is not a quarterback, but
yeah.
Obviously, a Trojan.
Right, exactly. But Case Keenum, you were talking about him earlier. He found now finds a new home with now competing against the likes of Paxton Lynch, South Dakota State University draftee by John Elway. I think there's some type of quarterback conundrum going on in Denver. Seriously, because I don't know that they can get it right, and I don't know that they can get it wrong. And they still have the draft through, but by getting Case Keenum is a big deal. And as of right now, as I see it, unless they draft maybe Lamar Jackson, I don't think he'll be there on the board at that point, but unless they grab somebody like him, Case Keenum is going to be your starter. I just don't foresee that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
He stepped in and took the Vikings to the playoffs. No one believed that he could, and he did,
Well,
I'm just blown away how that, I just can't believe they got rid of both of those guys, or all three quarterbacks.
Yeah, all three quarterbacks, because now Teddy Bridgewater's headed over to the Jets, and of course they retained Josh McCown in New York.
And Kirk Cousins is amazing as well. Kirk Cousins is awesome, but I'm still of the old school belief, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So there's that's what, and quarterback shifting that's a huge transition for a team. That's not, a secondary player. That's not making, acquiring or releasing a tight end or wide receiver. It's a huge, that's your captain, and to change the captain of your ship when every other part is going well, I that's what I have a hard time with.
Well, training camp is designated, and the whole design about training camp is to get people acclimated with one another, quarterback to wide receiver, quarterback to tight end, defensive tackles, linebackers, to build the camaraderie, to build the chemistry. I think Kirk Cousins is one of those pieces where you can put him anywhere and to be able to make something good out of it. But how good can Kirk Cousins be? All the attempts he made, all the bad throws that he made, his record against winning teams, things of that nature all really come into the factor of whether or not Kirk Cousins is there from the Vikings, a fully guaranteed salary. Ultimately, what he was looking for from the Redskins, they didn't feel that he was the guy, and he proved it. He proved it to them that he wasn't the guy. So now he's in a situation where he's now in Minnesota, not the perennial starter, but I think that as time goes on, as the draft happens and it occurs and is over and done with, that Kirk Cousins is an heir apparent to start under center.
Well, before training camp, what needs to happen and what you hear happen as well is that the players, quarterback and receivers will get together in the off season, and that's where you have your cohesion. You need to make that connection. And Kirk Cousins, I think, is a great quarterback. But you need to have that chemistry. You need to have, and that requires time. Unless you are, even if you're an all-star quarterback, that requires time to mesh with your receivers, to realize how fast they run their. I know even when Travis Benjamin came from Buffalo, one of the things he was so excited about was to have a quarterback. With the Browns. He was so excited to have a quarterback. He had 13 in his career at that point. But to have Rivers there, he was excited, but still Rivers and him had trouble connecting because Travis Benjamin runs extremely fast. He's a track star. He's a very fast runner, but learning how everyone runs and being able to have that sort of connection with players, that unsaid, which comes with time, and that's why I don't think I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a great quarterback. I just don't know why you would. I just don't understand the Vikings' choices on quarterback, when they had a phenomenal team last year.
Well, you look, when it's all about chemistry, when you need to get things done, when you have a quarterback coach or head coach, you can look at the relationship as being probably the number one reason why quarterbacks are successful in the NFL. It doesn't have to be a great one. It just has to have communication lines from A to B and from B back to A. So as long as there's communication, I think Kirk Cousins is a big communicator. I think it was on the fault of Jay Gruden in the sense that the communication factor that he felt he could have with Kirk Cousins may not as been as well as it should have, a very positive one, a very forthcoming one, because again, as a head coach and as a quarterback, if you make those types of bonehead plays that Kirk Cousins has been known to make, It makes you wonder why Jay Gruden and the Redskins say, you know what? It's been good. It's been great, but we know why we were going to give you the big money. But I completely agree with you there. We're going to stick with the Vikings theme because, there's a lot of reasons why. There's a lot of reasons behind that. We're talking about how Sam Bradford has another place to play. And when you push somebody like that back from injury, being the perennial starter, look, he was great in the early season, winning the first, 3 or 4 games, 5 games for Minnesota, and now finds himself being shoved out because it wasn't something that was his fault. He was rushed back from injury. He faltered during that time. The Cardinals seen enough of him, and I think it's a good pairing for Sam Bradford and the Cardinals to get it to guys like Larry Fitzgerald, who's been dying to get into the playoffs since a Super Bowl run against the Steelers in Super Bowl 43. That's where he wants to get back to. Whether or not you can, if Sam Bradford is the guy to get you there, is another story. But they ended up re-signing Drew Stanton to another deal to stay around just in case. Now, look, Drew Stanton doesn't impress me. What are your thoughts about the Sam Bradford exchange?
I think that's a good one. I think that's a great one. And not only Larry, but there's quite a few other playmakers with the Cardinals. And they have a very special, close-knit group, but they are also, going through changes too. Right. So, but I think he's great. I really have always liked him. He is a Big Ten player. I think he'll be a great addition, actually, for the Cardinals. I was actually really stoked.
Yeah, big time. I'm more than confident that fans are now saying, well, now we're finally doing something right. Cardinals brass is finally doing something right by getting a guy like Sam Bradford in. Let's kind of go to the AFC East, because now we were talking about Josh McCown, how Teddy Bridgewater is now, they are both now going to compete for the starting job. I don't care what the Jets do in the draft order. They can get a quarterback they want, but they're not going to be acclimated to the Jets system anytime soon. Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, this will be a serious quarterback competition to watch. I will be watching it because I want to see who ends up performing to the extent that the Jets need them to play to. And I think Teddy Bridgewater ends up getting the nod.
These are two quarterbacks. I mean, I know to play in the NFL, you need to be at a certain caliber, but they're not top tier quarterbacks in my mind. Teddy Bridgewater plays with a lot of passion, which I like. And I think the passion might lend really well over in New York with rallying the team together. So I think that actually might make a great fit. Josh McCown is a great quarterback, too, in college. I haven't seen much of him in the NFL to prove otherwise, or Teddy, for that matter. But Teddy's passion, when he was able to come back on the field and the tears that were in his eyes when he was on the sidelines, just sitting on the sidelines, I think his adversity will lend really well and even and make a real strong connection with those receivers in that team. And I think leadership could be definitely possible.
Definitely. I see Teddy Bridgewater. Look, he's coming back from injury. I think that when I look at Teddy Bridgewater, great guy, has a lot of passion. He played well when he was healthy. Question is whether or not he can get back to form.
He didn't play. He played. I mean, he played okay. He played fine. I don't think that his addition makes or breaks a team.
I don't think so either, but
I think his passion and his love and his gratitude to play does. And so I think that part of his emotional part will lend really well in that locker room, especially with the Jets having struggled, inside that locker room. And I'd really like head coach Bowles a lot.
I do too, but I always question Todd Bowles' ability to get the right guys. He had 4 active quarterbacks on his roster. Geno Smith.
That's not something. Geno Smith is cancer. Geno Smith is cancer. I'm sorry. He's total cancer in any locker room. I think that's been a constant for the Jets for the last 10 years.
Well, again, Todd Bowles is the one who ultimately makes that decision to say whether or not he wants to start them. So if he's that much of a cancer, you don't start somebody who is cancerous. You just don't. You bench them, you put them in the practice squad, whatever that is, probably the better situation.
They did.
Yeah, they eventually did. Yeah, they eventually did. But
They
I
had
mean,
to. He lost the locker room. He lost the locker room by his actions in the locker room, off the field.
but you have to question Todd Bowles, though. You have to question his ability to get a quarterback that works with it. I mean, how many quarterbacks are wrong? I mean, really, seriously, how many quarterbacks are wrong when they say, I just can't work with him? I just can't.
No, but I think he requires more time. I think you can't just step in there in the first 2 seasons and make that huge of an impact when you have a very dysfunctional locker room, and they have a very dysfunctional locker room. So I think it's something that takes time to mend. I think the cancer that came in with Gino, who was there before he got there, those arrangements were made. He doesn't have that say to, he is not the general manager, but he is making do with what he has. And so, and I don't know their relationship, but I know that I don't blame him. I don't blame Coach Bowles at all, because I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a great coach and plays passionately. And I think it's just a matter of time of really trying to shift out the shit, pardon my language, and just get positive, good players in that locker room. Change the whole, similar to what's going on or did go on with the Raiders a few years ago with Jack Del Rio, which that was another surprising that they let him go. But anyways, I'll be quiet. And I know it's Trojans.
No, it's perfectly fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Desiree Astorga. Desiree, thank you so much. Where can people check out your work? Where can they go hear you talk sports? And
you can listen to me on Tuesdays, or actually on Wednesdays, on Dash Radio, Dash Talk for the Desiree Show, and also on the iTunes, or follow me at Desiree_Astorga on my Instagram or Twitter, or at the Desiree Show on Instagram or Twitter as well. Thanks so much, Rudy, for having me. Appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Absolutely. Love to have you back.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Take
care. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. That was Desiree Astorga. I love having her on the show. She has different inputs, different sides, different thoughts on it, and that's what the Rude Dog Show is all about. Of course, when I look at the NFL draft and I look at upcoming things, and of course the wonderful men's Final Four is going on right now. We're still looking to talk a little bit more about that. And of course, I'm going to have Scott call in. Most people never heard of him. I was going to have him on the show last couple of weeks, but I've been busy with the NCAA tourney at Staples Center. But Scott Benson should be calling in momentarily. We're going to talk some sports with him, and we're certainly going to get his input, his thoughts about NCAA playing rules, pay to play, playing while being paid. There's a lot of variety when it comes to people's thoughts and people's input. What should the NBA do? What should the NCAA do? Who should pay who? You could probably think AC/DC. Who pays who? No, in this instance, it's who's paying who to play. I think the NCAA needs to finally figure that out. I've spoken about that at length with Tucker Dale Booth here on the show. Shout out to Periscope. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Retweet this, reshare this. Is a great show. It's good to be back behind. Haven't had one in front of me for a little bit of time because I've been doing so many things, from the Raiders interview to driving everywhere to covering the tourney to it's been busy, and today is certainly no exception to that rule. Lots of other free agents, and of course, when I look at Le'Veon Bell, I look at the fact that he's becoming more of a distraction on the Steelers team than anything else, and he's been villainized. Now, look, I don't live in Pittsburgh. I live here in Southern California, but from what I know, he's not being villainized. People are not saying that he's a bad person, not saying that he is he's Satan because he wants more money and so on and so forth. That's not the situation. That's not the issue. Le'Veon Bell needs to clearly get these types of lines straight. In other words, he needs to stop with social media and be more responsible with it, because who's villainizing him? Nobody's villainizing him. People are just stating that you don't ask for an exceeding amount of money, because why? It's not that you don't deserve it. It's got nothing to do with that. The fact of the matter is that the Steelers will not pay you double-digit millions on an extended contract as a running back. They didn't do that with Jerome Bettis. They didn't do that with Amos Zaraway. They didn't do that with Kerry Davis. They didn't do that with anybody, any running back, period. So you can't expect to get the kind of money that you're looking for. You're barking up the wrong tree. You're barking up the wrong team. That team is not going to do anything other than to say, well, maybe, we'll think about it. They put this stuff on the side burner. There's something wrong with that. If you're the Steelers, you put it on the side burner. Why? Because it's not important. You have a draft. You have the rest of the team to consider. You have all types of other situations. So you can't just – it's not all about you. And I think that's one of the reasons why Le'Veon Bell is feeling victimized, is because he's not getting the kind of money that he wants. I don't disagree with him that he wants more money or that he should be paid. The problem is that the Steelers won't pay him. It's simple. So, and I had mentioned yesterday, because there was a tweet that was floating around in regards to, is he victimized? No, he's not victimized. He's just got it wrong. And I think the way that he has it wrong is that the Steelers are not looking at any type of extended long-term deal. And that is all I have to say about that. So here to kind of jump backwards here, we're talking about the NCAA. We're talking about how one man who's on a mission, and I mean the man on the phone on a mission, and I think other people may be very interested in this. We'll probably go on till long as I feel like it. Welcome, Scott Benson, to the Rude Dog Show. Hey, Scott, hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
Man, I'm fantastic. It has been a whirlwind. Just to kind of reiterate, going on interviews, I interviewed with I didn't interview anybody. They interviewed me, the Oakland Raiders, and of course covering the NCAA tourney, which is kind of the segue into what has been the big discussion that still has yet to get any type of real flow insight in regards to what the NCAA should do in regards to these players that want to be paid. I've talked about it on the show. I've had extensive conversations on it with Tucker Dale Booth, and we're going to have this conversation now. I'm going to take one side, and you're going to fill me in as to why I shouldn't. And here it goes.
All right. All right.
The NCAA, I think, has a double standard here, because we know, at least we thought we knew, and of course it was recanted by the FBI, talking about how they did not intercept phone call between Coach Miller of Arizona and a player, Ayton is his last name, talking about how he was going to be paid, I think it's $100,000 or $10,000 in order to be recruited to stay at Arizona. What is wrong with that picture, and why is there a double standard with this situation, and why does Coach Miller still have a job?
Well, I mean, I honestly can't speak to that, because, I mean, I don't know enough about to say, what it is, but I can tell you that, I mean, you got to look at what the NCAA, if you make student athletes and you compensate them, then they're no longer, I would say, student athletes, and it's in one sense. But another one is that these schools are making so much money from these kids. I mean, don't shoot me, but I'm a big Duke fan, right? So you have shoe contracts, and you have, these kids that have jerseys made, and you have all this stuff going on where the kids don't see a penny. And, people will say, well, they're getting a college education. Well, with the one and done, no, they're not. I mean, let's be honest. I was an ex-basketball player, so you're taking 12 hours to get to your spring semester, and you're eligible, and then after that, you're not going to school. I mean, unless these coaches are making them go to class, I mean, they're done. So you're wasting a scholarship. you're giving away something that other players and other kids could be actually utilizing in a more proficient fashion. So I apologize for not knowing the Miller and the FBI thing, but what is your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I look at the NCAA system and I think to myself, there's been a lot of conversation in regards to why players should be paid. I'm not a fan of that for old school fashion reasons. And one of those reasons is that other players have been coming out of the woodwork stating that they were paid this or they were paid that. Mm-hmm. And now NCAA, I obviously have nothing to say. Alma Mater has nothing to say. So your crickets on the other end, the players who come out and say, yeah, I was paid this, or I was shown that, or I was paid that. And, here's the amount of money and so and so, or here's the trip to Tahiti, or, whatever. The NCAA, for all intents and purposes, needs to either change the culture, which will change the system, allowing players to be paid or to have that monetary accrual of jerseys. I think me and you've spoken about this offline. Jersey sales, ticket sales, to be put in a fund to do a variety of things. And that fund, we're talking double-digit $1,000 every single week, right? So you take part of that money and you put it for a scholarship to help Division II athletes compete to go to championships, or help Division I student athletes trying to get into this who can't afford to, in the pay-to-play situation, to get them to be able to compete. Because what that will do is that will help create parity in the NCAA sports program, not just basketball, but sports program. So if you're going to do that to basketball, you're going to do that to football, you're going to do that to volleyball, hockey, and every other sport in association with NCAA sports. I think that you would create a better environment, a better standard, and overall more competitive games. And I think the Pac-12 specifically can utilize that. How often do you find USC in the top 5 in football? Quite often, right? Or USC basketball, not so good. And so you have the polar opposite of how UCLA basketball has not been very good. USC football has been absolutely outstanding. UCLA football's been decent, not fantastic, but decent, whereas UCLA basketball also decent. So you're really kind of offsetting and getting players in order to help create better and much more consistent athleticism and better games overall.
Absolutely. And first of all, I mean, can I expand on, what I think should happen?
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, the one and done is over. I think it's doing nothing but hurting the college basketball. You have the NBA that has the D League, the G League, the whatever leagues. If these guys are good enough to go from high school to pros, and you have a system in place, you have, if there's 5 NBA coaches or, scouts that says this kid can be drafted in 1 year or 2 years to an NBA team, or this year we would pick them up, then they should go directly from high school into the D League or G League, or create another league that has these players, and it could be the top 20, top 30, but you have to have a consensus. 3 out of 5 people say, yeah, that kid could actually go. Because it's doing nothing but for college basketball. It is, I'm a big fan of Duke, but I don't see how, if these kids were staying, it would be great for college basketball. Look at the tournament. Most teams that have senior players and juniors and seniors are going on and advancing into the Final Four. You don't have the one and dones. Duke did it 2 years ago, just pure talent, right? But next year we're going to have another whole 3, 4, 5, 8, top recruiting class. And are those one and done? I mean, it's hurting college basketball. So that's the first thing. One and done's done. For me, I would say if you're either going to the pro league, then go. But if you stay, then you're staying for 3 years. And I'll give you the reason why for 3 years. Could you imagine, like you just said, the parity and the talent that these, not just the top D1 schools, but the mid-level, the high D2s would actually have kids and how well the basketball would be in the college ranks if they had juniors and seniors playing. Now, where my structure comes into play is that junior could leave after 3 years, but then they have to graduate from that school within 2 years to get what I'm going to set up and talk to you about, the compensation. And it's not paying the players cash, not putting money in their pockets, not giving their parents houses, not buying cars from. It is actually putting money based on the minutes they play, based on a percentage, and I don't know the right percentage, but you take the top 5 players, and if you wanted to be a starter, and if you knew that you were getting 2% of all the school's funds and my jerseys and everything else put into a Roth IRA, and after my junior year, I'm going to get that money if I graduate after 2 years period of time, even if I go to the NBA, then it makes college basketball that more exciting, because that bench player that might have went to Duke that is sitting on the bench might go to another D1 school and play, because he's going to be based on and paid on the minutes that they play. Not just, oh, you're going to get a percentage because you're playing, but it's based on the minutes you're playing. And I think it would spread out talent all across the schools, and not just the top D1 schools, but also the mid-majors. So if you didn't understand that, so I'm a top player on my team, and I'm going to get 2%, and I don't know if that percentage is correct, but based on the minutes I play from my freshman year until I leave that school, and it's put into a Roth IRA, and when I graduate from that school, I get that money. Only if I graduate. Now, like you just said earlier, if I don't graduate, if I go to the NBA my junior year and I don't come back and graduate from the school, what happens to that money? Well, then that money is sitting in a fund that's been growing, by the way, for the past 3 years. Then that should be given to, like you said, maybe it's providing scholarships to kids that couldn't afford the school. Maybe it's giving other scholarships to other sport teams, that don't have the scholarship money. But it's going back to that player, and it's not going back to the school in a sense of that they get to keep it. Either they give it away, they give it to scholarship. But that's two steps. Step one is getting rid of the one and done, and then step two is putting funds into a Roth IRA. Step three is if a coach is caught by giving any funds, and by the way, if there's an assistant coach, a booster, anyone giving funds to a school or to a student athlete, that coach is fired and barred from coaching. Period.
I'm going to expand on that. I will say take that money, because the respective college themselves would know whether or not that transaction is occurring, because they're the ones who have control over it. The coach is the one. So all essentially it needs to be done here is to monitor the monetization. In other words, have somebody appointed, not the coach, not somebody who works in the sports program, but somebody who works in administration, whether it be the vice president or their accounting company or whoever, somebody who has the specified duty to make sure that money doesn't go anywhere. That if for some reason, and I agree with you on the whole barring the coach, never coaching NCAA basketball again, like Rick Pitino or what have you, Louisville. That is Louisville, not Louisville. Louisville. Yeah. That money should be given right back into and put into the scholarship fund for the NCAA. Absolutely. And then they can divvy that out accordingly. Who's received more, who's received less. So if they put that into a general fund in a Roth IRA, or maybe something more so specific, or something, or maybe even a mutual fund or what have you, that will enable. And great idea, by the way. And of course, Scott Benson joins me here on the Rude Dog Show for the first time. So thanks for tuning in live on Periscope, live on Facebook, and this will be on TheRudeDogShow.com as a podcast format along with the video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. That'll be up in a little while. But I'm going to be devil's advocate for a minute, because I think that really needs to be had. I'm a student. My name is being used in NCAA video games. My jersey sales are through the roof because I'm a star player. I'm giving out autographs. I am attending functions where I'll be using my own time to help promote those functions. I want to be paid. I want money because they're using my likeness, they're using my signatures, they're using my name to promote the college, to promote the NCAA, regardless of whether it's Vanderbilt or if it's USC or whether it's Ohio State or anything else. I want my piece of the pie. How much money do I want will determine on, you're talking about time spent. So you count the amount of downs. So football gets a little bit trickier than it does basketball because basketball is all about minutes, but it should also be based on production. So if you add the minutes, you add the production, that applies to basketball, football, volleyball, tennis, or any competitive sports. I think tennis can be very, very competitive, or even golf for that. Golf is extremely competitive, at least on an individual basis, not necessarily a team basis, but individual basis. So you take those two components along with likenesses and royalties, etc. That adds up to a lot of money. So I want to graduate from college because those are my incentives, is to get the money I was put in a Roth IRA so I can do what I need to get to the next level, sustain myself, to help with bills, to help with family, needs and things of that nature. But at that point, that's my ability. That's what I want to do. It's my money. And I know I have to finish college first. I think it's a great plan. I think it's a great idea. I think the NCAA can prove this to be a worthwhile endeavor to make it their own and to make players feel that much better about what they're playing for. Not just a paycheck, not just to sustain me for a while, but the first ultimate goal is to get yourself an education, get your degree. Now, you had mentioned, Scott, that there's a certain amount of time, and I think that a certain amount of time should be given whether or not that student comes back to get their degree if they were to leave early. And I think the constituent should be at least a 1-year situation when they leave college to come back. If they don't come back in a year, they forfeit all that money. So there's their incentive to go back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you got to look at, so I won't name schools, but you might want to name schools, but look at all the schools that don't graduate college basketball players. I won't name any, but there's, one coach, I think that he didn't graduate one player in 10 years. So what good is that? So all you're doing is churning 1-year, 2-year deal people, and then you're not getting them to graduate. And that's what they're there for, is to get an education, not to play college basketball and move on to the pros. Right. So if you tie it to graduating, then you have a parameter to check every school, what's going on with them, what's happening, and also the basketball. Just imagine, these schools, every school, it levels the playing field, by the way. Every school's the same. That's why you have the barring of the coach, the head coach, because he's the leader of the ship. And if you don't know if one of your boosters or one of your players are doing, or one of your assistant coaches is giving money or getting something, then you know what? It falls on your shoulders. In every other business world, it falls on your shoulders. So why not this one? So, that's the key parameter. And then every school is the same. Now, I don't know the percentage, right? So I can't say, but you can. I don't know what the top 10 teams. Let's do the Kansas, Duke, Villanova, a tenured, seasoned school that has a Kentucky. How much money are they making for every year from the college sports? It's billions of dollars. Yeah. Millions. Yep. Okay. And you're telling me that these kids get an education. Great. But are they really getting an education? Are they really graduating? So if not graduating, then that's why tie it to it, and that's why you give a percentage investment, not in a cash lump sum. It's an IRA. You have to graduate to get the money. The system can work. You could put it into, D2. Anything that actually generates revenue, you could actually put this into place for colleges. Again, it's not. Go ahead.
No. I completely agree with you. And I think that you can also kind of add this into, and kind of to drive this home a little bit, is that you can give without giving away the farm, meaning that think about now. I understand you want to be the best you can be. You want to perform to your, supreme athleticism, and you want to be the team player and things like that. But how many other players, and I've spoken to a lot of them, that have said that, man, I just wish I had the opportunity to play at that level. And I've spoken to, so many guys that want that for themselves, but yet either, their financial circumstances, predominantly it is financial, because a lot of them don't even, one guy was homeless for that matter. He hasn't been on the show yet, but I'm just going to kind of sneak peek that in there. He was homeless, played for the SoCal Coyotes, and now he's trying to compete to get a job in the NFL, CFL, what have you. He didn't get those opportunities. So from a monetary standpoint, and strictly monetary standpoint, you can make the argument and say, well, what about me helping somebody else, right? Isn't that what this is all about? You're helping yourself, but what is it feel like to not only help yourself, but you're helping somebody else? There's absolutely no injustice by being able to say, you know what, not only did I help me, but I'm helping myself as well by helping somebody else.
Absolutely. Again, going back to, I look at it this way. If you have, 5 top starters and you have 3 bench players that can go to another school and actually play, and now in this setup, I would probably want to look at going to play, because if I'm based on my minutes I play and my production, what the percentage I'm going to get, and I get more, then I'm going to look at going to a different school. But also that opens up then the scholarships, or the, for other players that might want to go to that school and become a bench player and work. That doesn't mean bench players are totally out of the picture, because if you work and you say, wait a second, I can be getting X amount if I produce, and if I work my tail in, I could be playing. I think it just makes the game better in every aspect, and not just basketball, but in football, in golf, in every sport. Because again, it looks at your talent level and says, okay, if I'm going here, I can go over here, but I want to go somewhere where I'm going to play, because I'm going to make some extra money based on my production. Mm-hmm. And then if I don't come back and graduate, like you just said, I could actually benefit, or maybe you even have a say of who you can give a scholarship to, or like you just said, the NCAA creates a fund and they're able to give out, 300 more scholarships to other individuals that could not have made a team or something, or get them in schools because the other players haven't the requirements to get their diplomas. Right. People are going to do different things, right? So I just think there is a way to do it. I just don't think giving a check or giving funds directly to the student or to the parents or anything based on, kid's going to get a check in the mail based on they're coming to a school. No, do it on merit base, do it on their production, and do it on graduating from school.
I completely agree. Scott Benson joins me here on the Rude Dog Show, live on Periscope, and we're about to wrap up. Scott, where can everybody find this insightful information? Where can they find you?
Your site. How about that? I've sent this to Dick Vitale when he was talking about it on the Duke North Carolina game. I sent you an email with an outline of it. So really, I've only talked to, my friends and stuff around it, but, I would be glad to talk to anybody, or let's get someone, from the NCAA and have them hammer this out. There's a way to do it. And, again, if they want to open their eyes and really reward the players that are on the court or on the field or swimming for their contribution to that school, this is the way to do it.
Sounds good to me. I think it would be a worthwhile, like I said it before here on the Rude Dog Show, that it's a worthwhile endeavor. I think the NCAA would be better for it. I think players would be better for it as well. Scott Benson, thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on to the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. This is Rudy Reyes with Scott Benson. Desiree Astorga appeared before that, and so far so good here on the Rude Dog Show. I'm going to be watching some Final Four. Feel free to interact with me on social media. I will be there, just like the podcast and video will be on TheRudeDogShow.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Periscopers, if that's even a name. If not, it is now. And we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks. All right, bye.